If you want to participate, contact me at ordinarywomenpodcast@gmail.com. I'm sure you have great projects to brag about. You can also follow me and message me on Instagram at Ordinary Women Podcast, on Twitter at Ordinary Women PC, or on Facebook on the page Ordinary Women. Hi everyone, welcome to a new episode of Ordinary Women. I'm welcoming Claudia today. Hi, how are you?
Hi, Lucy. Hi, everyone. Yeah, I'm excited. Yeah, this is great. I'm looking forward to having a little chat with you today.
Same. Thank you so much for joining me. Can you start by giving us a quick introduction of yourself, please?
Of course, of course. So, hi, my name is Claudia. You can call me Claudia. I'm Italian. I've lived in London for the past 16 years. And I am officially becoming British on the 25th of July.
Congratulations.
Thank you. Thank you very much. It's a really exciting time, and I'm really looking forward to the ceremony. So, big achievement, being someone from abroad, having lived in the country for some time now. I am also founder of an agency. It's called WellMedia, and for the past 16, 17 years, I've worked in digital advertising, mainly in corporates.
So interesting. Can't wait to hear more about all of this. And can you tell us something unusual about yourself?
Okay, something unusual. So most of the time, I don't really think there is anything really special about me. I just think I'm the ordinary early millennial with, quite a boring life at times. But then when I talk to my friends and family and, like their expression, their comments that they make, so then I think, okay, so maybe it's not really the standard linear type of trajectory of life that many people would have, I'm thinking about, first of all, having moved to a completely different country when I was 25 years old. That was after uni, and having had my master's in Italy and coming here with pretty much no knowledge of the English language, without really knowing anyone, and then, kind of trying and find my own way. And within a span of 2 to 3 years, I not only had started working full time, but I had also founded my first business when I was 27. And so then for the following 10 years, having two jobs at the same time, I guess that is also quite unusual, intense for sure. And
Wow.
it's been such a long journey. Plus, of course, now 6 years ago, becoming a mother for the first time, and then having, in the end, 2 kids, and alongside, managing the career at the same time, not having support in the country. So I guess all of this is, kind of unusual, but I also would challenge you. What is, usual really? What is expected? I guess that everyone has, something extraordinary or not ordinary, rather, in their own, path and journey.
Yeah, I definitely agree. And I love your answer. And it's also really interesting to see that you see, what you mentioned at the beginning, you see it as quite not unusual, not extraordinary, but then it's all the people who tell you, no, it is unusual.
Yeah. Yes.
But yeah, that's really cool. And yeah, managing a company at 25, that's, really impressive. I hope you'll get to hear a bit more about that later on today. Obviously, on this podcast, we talk a lot about what it's like to be a woman. So I like to start our discussion by asking, was there an event or a moment in your life when you realized that you are a woman?
Oh, okay. So this is the tricky question. I know you always ask, and also it's a deep one. So I think from a very young age, actually, because I grew up in a culture, and probably also the type of family that I grew up in, there was a lot of emphasis on the expectations around gender. right? So about,
Mm.
certain behaviors for girls. I remember clearly that, girls need to speak in a certain way, to sit in a certain way, or, even to dress. And so it was about behaving. And of course, not only as a child, but also that I guess it becomes even more prominent when you're a teenager with
Mm.
puberty. So it was always very obvious that the expectation towards women were, at least to me, pretty different from the expectation that society would have towards men. And growing up, I also, heard a lot of compliments about girls that needed to be. So, what a good girl would be about being agreeable, being observant, not only really from my own family, so, but it was very, very obvious at school as well. So, having someone opinionated, having someone that was bringing their own energy and their own ideas that were a bit different or controversial wouldn't land very well in general in the society where I grew up. I think I can still see it today. But I guess that, everything became very, very apparent when my family moved from Milan to Bari, Milan, north of Italy, Bari, southeast of Italy. And I remember very clear that was probably the 80s, the 90s. And I remember the stark difference in gender expectations between these two places. It was in Bari, actually, in the south, that I started to really feel distinctively kind of different from other girls. I began to notice and feel really that weight of needed to fit in, to behave in a certain way, simply because I was a woman. Even though I wasn't, was a young girl, I couldn't fully, label this type of sensation at the time. But pretty much we were talking about sexism. I clearly remember the limitations, the biases to girls in general, and certainly towards me. And at the time, I didn't really have, of course, the way to describe it. I knew that the way I felt was unjust, simply unjust, because it was making differences in terms of, ambition and behavior and personality, and was putting girls in a box, really. And so then when I grew older, especially during the teenage years, I was always more and more aware of this. And then I started becoming vocal about, my perspective and really kind of opening and sharing, how I felt. So now, of course, we are in 2024. So I think that was, 30 years ago. There's still so much that we need to do. But at the same time, I'm finding, kind of pleasure and fulfillment in mentoring and supporting other women. And, for me, it's bringing back to the kids as well to think about how can I make sure that I educate my two boys, because, yeah, interestingly enough, I am a two boys mom. How can I make sure that they don't feel that entitlement of, certain level of freedom and certain way of behaving on their day to day?
Yeah, that's so interesting. And it's kind of interesting that you're almost having a new challenge now as a mom to ensure that your sons don't create the challenges that you faced when you were a little girl.
Yes, absolutely. I think it's down to culture. It's down to
Mm.
like, so we can do so much more in the way we bring up the new generation. And I really believe that when we are bringing those value to life and providing, models, but also discussing topics, then we can put the right seeds in place to make a completely different generation flourish and function in a more equal and fair way. So yeah, no, I'm really happy that I have two boys, because I think you can either on one end empower girls and support them and make sure that they are reaching and expressing their full potential without any limitation. But on the flip side, we need to make sure we work on boys or the men of the future. So yeah.
Yeah, definitely agree. And speaking of inspiring young and empowering young girls, did you have any women role model when you grew up?
Okay, so growing up, I was I was in Italy, right? So I was
Mhm.
surrounded by a lot of incredibly strong, multitasker women. Despite their education, however, I do admit that they would see us looking as their, after their family was their primary, responsibility. However, there was someone that at the beginning I didn't really, kind of realize, but my grandmother on my father's side, so her name was Nonna Nunzia. My first name actually is Nunzia, it's not Claudia or Claudia. So she was someone that years after I understood that was really kind of progressive in her whole way. I'll tell you a little bit about her. So she was definitely well read, a teacher. She was passionate about Latin and Greek and ancient Greek. And she would spend hours reading and studying, which was quite, different from what the other typical Italian women from the South would do. And I clearly remember a lot of other women in my family criticizing her for that. Because the expectation was really for her to be caring about the family. And I know for sure that Nonna Nunzia decided at some point that cooking and looking after certain things in the house was not really exciting for her. Well, I would agree with that.
Yeah.
And yes, I wouldn't. And definitely, I think that in itself was very inspiring for me a few years after, because by her deciding something that was as simple as that, and then dedicating more time towards things that for her were adding value to her life and were bringing her, fulfillment, it was, a very progressive choice. So it wasn't, of course, about, being rebellious about norms, but definitely was about being disruptive and also really kind of, follow your own interests and, kind of not be afraid of sometimes being criticized, because we can't be liked by everyone. So that showed me really that women could carve out their own path and prioritize their intellectual or professional growth and passions. And I didn't really realize it when she was alive. I remember that she would be the kind of nonna, which means grandmother, to really kind of take you to this very beautiful story and journey. She was enchant me for hours, telling me about, like all the ancient Greek and Latin stories. So I would love spending time with her because of that. But then years after, when I became a woman and I was reflecting on, her journey and what she did, I really realized that, I felt really inspired. And just really kind of thinking about fulfillment in life and trying to follow your path and, be brave and do it. So, so I guess that's Nonna Nunzia had a really beautiful, beautiful story.
She sounds amazing. Yeah, from what you're saying about her, she sounds really, just amazing.
Yeah, no, I think she was very different from, the time we're talking about, the 20s and the 30s in South of Italy, sometimes really kind of following what you like and making the rest of the family and to, support you with that. So big message. It's about, following your path and being, true to what you like and what you value.
Yeah, oh, such a beautiful message. I love that you grew up next to someone who taught you that. And what about today? Do you have any women role model or inspiration?
That is a really good question. It's always tricky. I can't think about a single person. I find inspiration not just from, the idea in general of success. So when I look at people that I admire, for me, it's more about enjoying the journey rather than, being successful, for example, at work and staying kind of, matching the standards that what success should look like from the outside. So in general, I like and I feel inspired by people that feel comfortable in their own skin. And when that happens, generally I see that this type of women are happy to help others. They offer advice, support. So I don't really buy in the concept of having a single role model, but rather I certainly have lots of women friends or people that I, just follow on, social, that inspires me from various perspectives. For example, how can you be a great partner in life? How can you be an incredible friend? Or what, an exceptional professional looks like? How can you lead a team and bring the best out of people? And that same applies to mothers and being a daughter. So it's more about having different people that inspire different parts of me. And what really makes these individuals, these people successful in my eyes is not just their achievements again, but it's how they conduct themselves through their journeys and how aligned they are to their values, their personalities, their goals, their dreams. So for me, it's more about, making sure that I surround myself in terms of content and people that are offering motivation and inspiration. But I don't really have, one single role model. At the same time, I think it's important to be aware of, the type of people that you surround yourself with. So I have a close circle of friends and people that I see, like colleagues, mentors, that I am extremely grateful for. And I'm proud actually to be in their life. But again, it's about sharing the journeys, sharing their vulnerabilities, understanding how others have overcome a certain challenge. And then that's where I get inspired. That's where I see, oh, what actually she's done that. I can do the same. Or that's what really I'm craving for day in and day out. It's looking at people that are doing it. They are overcoming challenges because that's part, and then they're aligning their life in general with values. So it's about their stories, and and selecting a very close circle of friends and mentors that are there for you. That's definitely super important.
Yeah, it sounds that you are really good at surrounding yourself with good people who bring you what you need from life and who inspire you. That's so great.
Yeah, 100%. It's important. I think there is a way of saying it, like make sure that you surround yourself. You are the sum of the 5 people that you spend the most time with. So
Yes. Oh,
have you
yeah,
ever
I
heard
love
that?
this. Yeah, I hadn't heard that in a very long time. So thank you so much for reminding me about that. But this is so true.
Yeah, I think it's a very powerful quote. And I guess
Mm.
nowadays, because we live in an economy, attention economy, world, we need to make sure that we are careful, of course, not only with that, but also the type of content and the information that we consume. So I would extend that, we need to be very careful about the people that we interact the most in terms of mindset, but also the content.
That is so, so true. It has such a big impact on outlook on life and just the way you think every day. That's,
Exactly. Yeah.
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 And to continue with very profound questions, do you think that the lack of representation of women in society had an impact on you?
Hmm. I think so. Yes. I think it did. I could have realized certain things that I've realized later in life earlier. And I think I would have made certain decisions certainly before the time that I actually did. It took me sometimes to come out of certain boundaries and concepts that I kind of grew up with. And so yes, I think if I had perhaps women that were being an entrepreneur or being more into technology, definitely I would have considered that path. In full transparency, when I was little, I wanted to become a doctor. And
Oh,
yes, I wanted to be a doctor, and I wanted to be just a generic doctor. I wanted to be a pediatrician. A
okay.
pediatrician, and I wanted to travel in development, third world and development countries. And I remember my dad, I think I've heard similar stories. My dad saying, well, I know that you're very ambitious and one day you might want to have a family and, really consider this because it's a long journey. It's a long journey, and because of course, you work long hours. Sometimes you need to do turns and be at hospitals, or you can be on call. And I guess that I changed, so I chose completely different path and studies. But if I had more women working as doctors, probably I would have seen it as something that I could have actually achieved. So then, yes, definitely. It's not having had either, if you think about it, when I'll tell you also a bit more about what I do for a living, about WellMedia, it's about seeing people that either worked in technology or that had, founded their own business, or they had brought to life, or they were working as doctor. That would have certainly impacted my journey.
Yeah, that makes so much sense. Yeah, and it's also so interesting that, like, I hear what your father, and I've definitely, yeah, also heard other people mentioning that their parents would have the same type of discourse, not with the intention of discouraging, but with the intention of almost protecting their child from, making sure that they take the good decisions. But it's also, obviously, it is a little bit discouraging, especially when you're young. And yeah, definitely interesting that this is only being said to mothers, or like not even mothers actually, because I'm assuming when your dad say that, yeah, we're now a mother, yeah, right?
Exactly. I was 18 probably. Yes. I was,
Yeah.
choosing a stage of life when you decide, oh, what do you want to do when you grow up? And my first immediate answer was, I want to be a pediatrician. It wasn't even a doctor. I want to be a pediatrician and go and help kids that are not as lucky as we are. So kind of it was obvious that I wanted to have
Yeah.
an impact. I wanted to have an impact on other people's life. And then, my second choice was studying philosophy. And then there was
Oh.
someone else like, I don't think, again, everyone had an opinion. So,
Yeah.
and then in the end, I ended up, what did I study? No, really, international relationship, marketing, communication with the master. So doing something quite different. Because if you think about studying medicine and becoming a doctor or studying philosophy, it's about contributing to the world, the society in two different, completely different ways, right? One, it's about debating concepts and moving, the society forward. The other one is saving life, technically, yeah, right? And then if you think about the choice that I made, marketing. So marketing is about revenues to a company, as simple as that. And, maybe we can deep dive into this, but it's probably on the opposite spectrum of what I really wanted to do. You have marketing, you need to have budgets, you get those budgets to reach audiences with messages that are pushing them to buy more stuff. In order to buy more stuff, you need to work more. When you work more, you have less time to do things that really matter. And so that really tells, screams unhappiness, screams, yeah, all the negative things that we can have in life. So yeah, I'm sure that I would have made different choices if I had those type of examples in my life.
Yeah, that's so interesting. Thank you so much for sharing. And actually, I think that brings us nicely to the sort of second part of this discussion to talk about something that you have actually done and are proud of. So, the decisions that you did make with all of this advice and what you made of this. So, just like focusing on the project or achievement, life experience, call it however you want. But what do you want to talk to us about today?
Yes, yes. As I said, I think I'll start talking a bit about what I do for a living. As of today, has been a
Perfect.
journey. So has been a journey. So there are some changes, and I guess it connects really nicely, as you said, with wanted to be a doctor, wanted to make a difference, right? So I am the founder and consultant of WellMedia Ltd. We are a digital marketing agency that focuses on wellness, health, and pharma sectors. So what we do, we specialize in influencer marketing campaigns, which we then amplify on additional audiences or audience expansions via paid social and programmatic advertising. The mission there is really to deliver content and advertising solutions that combats misinformation and really empowers people to make informed decisions about their health. And now you see the connection with the medical and how these two bits were really kind of connected. So it all really kind of goes back to the fact that we are living in an era where misinformation can spread so rapidly. And in the health sector, it's even more prominent. I'm sure that you can think about lots of, like the TikToks and the Meta, or if you think about elections. And so with this, we try to be a beacon of truth and reliability. And I'll give you a couple of examples of types of campaigns that would fit nicely with WellMedia. I'm sure that you are familiar to a number of campaigns that can be government-led or charity-led or pharma and medical, but there was one that it was a few years back. It was hashtag mental health awareness. It was by Mind Charity. And they partner with an influencer that I'm sure you come across. Her name is Zoe Zhao, better known as Zoella. She's a huge YouTuber from the early days. And
Yes.
do you know her?
I've never watched her videos, but I've definitely heard about her. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Awesome. Yeah, I think she was probably one, if not the ones that was considered the first British huge influencer with a huge YouTube following. And on that campaign, for example, she worked along with Dr. Alex George, which is another, super well-known, now kind of celebrity, really. And so what they did, it was by leveraging their huge following and also the way they, the authentic approach to connecting with their audiences, they kind of provided some valuable resources from, like, first of all, acknowledging mental health. Mental health awareness was about, making it open and transparent conversations about the fact that people go through challenges, mental challenges and stress. And so, kind of it was about raising awareness and helping many people feel as not lonely in their journeys and in their struggles. So these are the type of campaigns that at WellMedia we would do. So we are trying to be a business for good, which means that all our operations are fully aligned with B Corp values to ensure that we're making a positive impact, not only on the society by talking about certain topics, but also whenever we are managing campaigns, first of all, making sure that we are not making campaigns just for selling, but we want, first of all, to educate and to bring change to people that are ultimately impactive in a positive way their life. And so it's about making sure that the informations are, first of all, correct. Because, misinformation means that there is a lot of, false claims around what a product, for example, can do for you, or what, specific lifestyle can do for you. And if you look at what is happening with younger generation, it's absolutely prominent. So aligning with B Corp, but also making sure that we bring messages that are supporting a positive outlook to life and are driving positive changes. So this is in a nutshell what we're trying to do with WellMedia.
It's so cool. I love it. It's also so interesting because at the beginning you were talking about wanting to be a bit pediatrician and
Yes.
second choice philosophy, and you were talking about how there was that sort of like, on the mind sort of work versus the body, and now it's almost as if you combine both, right? You're doing
Yeah,
like the sort of screening by the brain before using products on your body.
yeah, it's kind of. Yeah, I think it's also trying to first of all collaborate with influencers and
Mm.
opinion leaders that are credible, that
Yeah.
are knowledgeable in their respective fields, of course, and also make sure that we promote the right values when we do
Yeah.
activate advertising campaigns, because it's about prioritizing, the content
Mhm.
integrity and the values and the well-being, ensuring, for example, that all the informations that we share are through vetted and sourced and reputable authorities in the health sector. So we're trying to do things a bit differently. It's all about kind of the fight against misinformation and thinking about the core, which is wellness, it's well-being, it's doing good first, prioritizing that before profit. Which I don't know how long. Yeah, it's a quite bit different, but it's certainly aligned to my beginnings.
Yeah, that's amazing. And speaking of beginnings, why did you start this company?
Oh, okay. So I think it's the culminations of my 15, 20 years of work. So as I did mention earlier, I wanted to be a doctor, right? So I dreamt of studying medicine. And funnily enough, I was inspired by my father's profession. Studied medicine, but it
No
wasn't good for me.
way.
Yeah, yeah. Tell me about it. That drives me really to have that. I wanted to make good to others, bring good, and wanted to make a difference. So that was the purpose. Now, in 2020, when I had my second son, I was in lockdown and I had a lot of time to think. I remember that at the time I was interviewing for eBay because I was at eBay for quite some time after that. And I was questioning my impact at work. So, what was the impact of my work on my day to day? And so on one side, I started thinking about, oh gosh, with programmatic advertising, we are bombarding people with messages and with content. If you think about it, it's completely disconnected in terms of, the way we're operating, constantly receiving notification and really kind of struggling, especially for the new generation, to find time to, kind of deep focusing on something. And I think we're living in a very stressful, highly demanding society. So on one end, I wanted to be more conscious about delivering content and advertising, but at the same time, I wanted to add value and keep in mind people well-being and the planet. So 2020 for me was becoming a mother for the second time and then being in lockdown, seeing also misinformation. And I'm sure that I don't need to go in, deep in that, but you have seen what has happened with the vaccinations and all of
Yeah.
that. And so kind of really deepened my introspection. And I longed really to realign my career with my values. That was about wellness, longevity, health. So I started then to really kind of try and slowly pivoting my career towards this. And for example, at eBay, the opportunity there for me was really kind of, I managed a big team. So I had probably 20 people and they were partly sales, partly of them customer success. And then I could really kind of pick and choose the clients that I wanted to assign to myself. And so since then, and those years at eBay, I started really kind of working more for example, the supplements. They are, like you can buy online or medical equipment or certain things that I could, kind of really get closer. And that's where it started. So I think the inspiration came from, first of all, a misalignment in myself, but also wanted to put my skills, 15 to 20 years skills, at the service of a cause where I could be proud of in 10, 15, 20 years' time. So that's where it all started.
Wow, that is so interesting. Also, I love that, you were still. I find it always hard to be in a job where you're like, oh, I'm not sure, but
Yeah.
it's so great that you managed to say, okay, what can I take for this job and how can I make it, better for myself? That is so, so great.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it was quite natural there. It was essentially trying, probably it didn't have a name. It wasn't a project. It was just the very beginning of something that a few years after would have become something that, now I work full time. So yeah, always try
Yeah.
to look at your current job, even if you are not 100% where you would like to be, trying to make it closer to a role where you can add value, you can feel motivated and inspired. I think that was very, very important for me. And I made it. I spent a few years at eBay and I was absolutely excited because again, I was focusing on clients and brands where I could see the value. They interested me. Plus, I was managing a lovely team and I love leading teams and mentor them and coach them. So I enjoy that time. But while doing that, there were the seeding and there was WellMedia that was in a blossoming phase, kind of. Yeah.
Yeah. And what was that phase like? So, like, what actions did you take? What concretely, what was like your first step to creating that? What did you do?
So it was, yeah, I think it was about starting to take some side projects. alongside my full-time job and being a mom. So I guess that
Whoa.
I wanted to. So I started working with someone in my network that I needed a little bit of help. And that became something that I kicked things off. I guess it was like they call it the market validation or the minimum viable product to really kind of say, okay, so how can I help you? And how can I put my skill set to service of a campaign that you want to do? And so then things from there evolved because campaigns started doing really well. I really enjoyed working with some medical influencers. We had a couple of holistic, non-traditional doctors. We had a few lifestyle and mum. Yeah, so it was amazing. And then after that, I came up with the idea, okay, you know what? Once we have created this content, how can we actually take it and amplify it? And it was a test and learn because you don't have all the answer when you start. But I guess going there with an open heart and enthusiasm and wanted to learn, and every time you start a new project, you know that there will be a learning curve that will need to happen. And sometimes it's a bit painful. Sometimes it's a little bit uncomfortable, especially when you are, when you've been doing same type of roles, you can do it pretty much with the left hand. And then so relearning things and working on yourself, because there are lots of things that I had to relearn and new technology. Or, for example, I'm a bit of an AI junkie. I know that everyone now talks about AI, but I've been an AI junkie at ChatGPT the first week that was launched, and I was expecting it actually. And so, how can we also learn from this technology, machine learning, and implement it so that when we target audiences, we do it in a way that it's meaningful and not just for spamming them. We need to be conscious about what we do in terms of ethical practices and social responsibility. And there is a lack of that in media and the ad technology space. All the businesses out there, majority of businesses are following just the revenues, the selling more, the bombard more, the target more. But what happens to a 18 years old that is constantly bombarded by things that he or she needs to buy? It will make them, first of all, unhappy, and then it will create that need for chasing more. Whether we should be really mindful about what we're doing, especially now that with generative AI, I think there are, I don't know, I believe 8 millions of pieces of content that are delivered on a daily basis worldwide. And so we need to safeguard. We need to do things with a bit more intention.
Yeah. How have you been navigating that?
So, bringing WellMedia to life has meant doing a lot of hard work once again. Instrumental in this, really, I guess, connecting to what we were saying before. It's the network, friends.
Yeah.
I guess it's important to kind of really make sure that you have support around you. So that encouragement has been really crucial. For me, I'm not a 20 or 30 years old woman, but being my mom and being, a bit older, it meant taking the risk. But at the same time, learning to not to listen to that voice that it's telling you that you are going to fail. Because there is naturally inside the majority of us that little voice that tells you, well, follow the path, send the CV, find, a more stable job in a corporate. Send it.
Yeah.
Last Sunday, I could have tried, I don't know, Amazon. It's very similar roles, and then but then at the same time, for me, was actually saying there was a pain, and there was something that wasn't really there. And so for me, the inspiration and the determination came from the fact that I wanted to be aligned with who I am. And again, not follow a logic of, hey, I need to be successful. I need to earn this. I need to mirror what other people think that a successful career path would be. But actually, I need to make it a little bit more meaningful for me and enjoy that journey.
Yeah, thank you so much for sharing. That's so interesting. And was there anyone who had an impact on it? Like anyone who particularly helped you or was present or anyone who had an impact on it?
100%. Something that I've learned through WellMedia and my journey of 2023 really being a tricky year for sure. It was about reaching out for people and asking for some of their time. And you'd be surprised that once you start doing that, people are actually very happy to help you. So I had, for example, when I put together my first deck, that was probably a year ago, just, present it to some people and say, hey, challenge me. Ask me tricky questions. Ask me the most obvious question that I might not have think of. And so really I helped myself by asking other people for help. So some very experienced people in the market, but also people that nowadays you can reach through LinkedIn. There is so much potential there. For example, having some doctors looking at some aspects of one specific campaign, or when I was looking for a legal consultant, legal not being my area, because as you know, medical, health, pharma, wellness are highly regulated industries. So
Yeah.
you need to make sure that what you say, it's that. And also it's very important, despite of the regulations, we at WellMedia want to, do it right. And it's important because technically, in advertising, people say we don't save life. Well, you do save life if you
Yeah.
educate to certain lifestyle. Think about smoking, for example. In Italy, everyone smokes, or a lot of people. Think about if you're on a campaign around that in the right way, talking to the right people, utilizing very well followed influencer or talents or creators or opinions. So it's definitely the driving of the impact. It's at the core. And it's at the core of what we do.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, I mean, we were just talking before about our respective jobs, and I'm in the same sort of industry, and it's yeah, we don't save lives in the way that we're not doctors, but we do give information about people's health, and that is really a different, not as important as a doctor, but it's still very important, right?
I think,
You
yeah,
still have an impact on someone's health.
absolutely. It's 70% of the people today, they start their journey in investigating, a health-related problem online.
Mm.
It's about having a second opinion on a diagnosis. It's about looking for information for a specific problem. For example, a few weeks ago, I had some breathing problem myself, a bit of asthma due to a number of factors,
No.
probably also. And I started really my journey on that. So it's true, we don't really technically save life, but information, it's what makes a doctor who they are in first place. It's that knowledge and that guidance. And so when we educate the audiences, we can impact, for example, if you think about early diagnosis or prevention of something,
Yeah.
yeah, that can really, really impact. That's why, from governments, but we are seeing always more and more campaigns around preventative education and testing. And so then I like to think that we do share a fair amount of responsibility in that space.
Yeah, definitely. That's so interesting. And what challenges have you faced?
Okay, well, challenges, I think, is a battle with myself. I think I touched upon it. It was about, really kind of deciding to say, hey, I could have another job that pays me decently, where I am very comfortable on what I'm doing, instead of saying, you know what, instead of doing what it's the easiest path, I would do what is the most aligned. So it's been really the challenges. It's been myself, believing in myself and saying, I'm going to take the risk and I'm going to put all myself in what I believe and do it and just do it. So, but then I guess once you took the leap, I found that, there were things that I thought were going to be very difficult, and then instead they were easier than expected. For example, something notably that would make it or break it from a company perspective is obviously finding clients, right? And in
Yeah.
that sense, has been really kind of, I don't want to say it, but it's been quite easy. It seems that we are very vertical, right? So we are very specific. And probably the mix of those type of different skill sets. So the understanding of advertising, the understanding of content, the understanding of medical information and communication. Plus, I'd like to think that I'm quite structured, coming from a more mature part of advertising. So I understand a lot of the data and the measurements and how to deliver on, for example, return on investment or ROAS, which is return on advertising spend. So because of this mix, I guess that we have been in a position to also be a bit selective on the type of clients that we want to work with. So making sure that we work with the ones that are really kind of making a difference and they align in terms of value, which I think it's a bit of a luxury, right? So the challenge has been myself at the beginning. And then as I started and I was in the midwest of do it, I realized that, yeah, that was the right thing to do.
That's super cool. And especially for, yeah, finding clients and being, I mean, especially when you're value oriented, but then you still, I mean, we all have jobs because we have to survive in a capitalistic world, right?
Yeah.
But it's amazing if you're at that point where you can choose your clients and make sure that it aligns with your values. That's
Yeah.
amazing.
A nice
That's,
place to be. Yes, yes.
yeah, that's the best we can wish for you. And why are you proud of yourself for this?
I think it's because I kind of, created something that goes above and beyond influencer marketing and paid media. We are kind of partner for some brands fighting against the health misinformation that is very prominent, especially with the rise of, the short video content. Think about
Mm.
TikTok, think about, any other platform really. So I'm proud because of, first of all, I believe in what we are doing. We're working with some incredible pharmaceutical, pharma, health, wellness brands. But at the same time, I'm really proud because I was brave. I learned to not think about, you can't be a doctor because it's going to be long hours and turns away from your family. Then kind of closing that circle back to saying I can actually do something that I like. Even when I've done 15 years of a career in corporates, even when I have parental responsibility and maybe I can't work 24/7, even when I am comfortable in my own professional skin, because again, it's about knowledge, it's about learning, it's about refinement of existing skills. So yes, I am pretty proud of having been quite bold and brave.
Yeah, that's amazing. That's really, really cool. Thank you so much for sharing all of this. I think we're going to conclude our episode on this. But just
Okay.
before we stop, is there anything that we didn't have a chance to talk about during our discussion that you wanted to tell us or chat about before we conclude?
No, not really. I think it was, we covered, the core of what I do as a woman. And I guess we reflected on a journey that didn't start as the ones that it's about empowerment, but it's about actually being put in a box and expectation. And I guess we ended it well because in the end, I am doing my own thing that aligns well with my value and bringing the best or the best versions of myself into the world and making sure that I can make a positive impact not only on society but generally to other people.
Yeah, definitely. That's so, so cool. Thank you so much for sharing and for your time today. It was so interesting and great to chat with you and to listen to you. So thank you so, so much.
Thank you. Likewise, I really, really enjoyed it. And thank you for your time and for putting this together because, I found it inspiring. I'm one of your bigger fan, always listening
Oh,
to stories, feeling
thank you.
inspired. Yeah, you keep it up, girl. Yeah, it's really special. Thank you.
Oh, thank you so much. And well, if you listened before, you know that there is a little tradition in this podcast, which is that the guest gets the very last word. Say the mic is yours.
Okay, so the last word is about that the best way. I want to, I'm thinking about a quote, and it's about finding your own path. Really, it's from Mahatma Gandhi, and it says the best way to find yourself is to lose yourself in the service of others. So I guess that this embodies our kind of commitment to self, audiences, and public about, health education and journey and bringing positive values in the world.